I broke Instagram when I posted a single video that helped me gain over 8,000 followers. And then a month later, I reposted the exact same concept with 2 videos and got a combined 900,000 views and 7,000 followers. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, so you can copy me and blow up your Instagram with a single video too.
Your first video is not going to get views, period. It's
Everybody started at 2 views. Mr.
And you got 7 views.
Make 100 videos and prove something every time. Do that.
Posting 7 to 10 videos every day.
So, you might have heard from some of the gurus that you can't go viral in your first few or even 100 videos. And trust me, I used to think that too. Posting videos like this, or even that, before I saw any kind of traction. But eventually, something clicked. And after applying this formula to countless videos, it's safe to say that it's single-handedly the reason I now get results like this, and this. So let me introduce you to the viral formula, or as I like to call it, the scripting stones to go viral. The scripting stones are kind of like the Infinity Gauntlet from the Avengers, but for your short-form scripts instead. As once you fill all 6 slots with the correct stones, you'll have the perfect script for your video, and you'll get a ton of views. But if you remove one, the video crumbles. Trust me, every single one of my 70+ videos since May has all 6 stones in exactly the right places. I mean, the views kind of speak for themselves. Let's get into it. Now, by far, the most important stone is the one that comes first for every video script, the Storefront Stone. This is what gets your viewer to stop and watch. Kind of like the outside of a store that has a flashing sign or a window that hints on what's inside. All of this exists to hook you in, because no matter how good the stuff inside is, no one's going to enter if it looks ugly from the outside. The Storefront Stone is your video's hook. If you don't have a solid hook, it doesn't matter how good your video is, because it won't stop the viewer from scrolling away. And good hooks are made up of 2 things that you absolutely must get right to keep your viewers watching. Part 1 is the text hook. For example, if this video didn't have text in the first few seconds, it'd just be a boring talking head video. And the same goes for this example and all these examples you see on screen. So, that begs the question, how do you master the text hook to get views like these? Well, first, the text you use needs to open up what we like to call a thought loop. And if that sounds confusing, I promise you it isn't at all. It simply means to ask the viewer a question that can only be answered from watching on. And to master your thought loop text, just like I did to blow up my page, it's simple as breaking it into 2 key components. 1, by directly putting one of the 5 W's or the word how in your text hook, a bit like this video. Or second, simply by having your text hook subconsciously ask any of those 6 questions. For example, this video of mine does exactly that, as you could easily put the words how to, or why, or when at the very start, which of course opens that all-important thought loop. Now, our second step to mastering the text hook and unlocking that Storefront Stone is even easier. You just need an adjective or an adverb somewhere within your text hook. And for those of you who haven't been in a classroom for a while, an adjective is a describing word, and an adverb describes a verb. Now this is what transforms your text hook from just kind of being there to one that guarantees a watch. For example, the word viral in my video is an adjective, as it perfectly describes what the video will do for the viewer if they use it. Okay, so we've covered the first 2 steps to mastering our text hook. And now that begs the question, how many words should our text hook actually be? Well, that brings us on to step number 3 of our Storefront Stone, the length. And rather than me just plucking a number from thin air, let's look at the facts. The average human can read just under 4 words per second. And our hook is always around the 2 to 4 second mark. But this is social media, and your viewers aren't here for a reading session. So we need to always ensure our text hook is below 7 words long, aka it's readable in less than 2 seconds. If your spoken hook's 2 seconds long or less, aim for a text hook of 4 words max, just so you can guarantee that every person that watches your video has time to read your text hook. So, putting those 3 steps into practice, let's say I was making a video on growing on social media. My text hook will look something along these lines. That way, we've opened up multiple thought loops, we've also used an adverb and an adjective, described the topic of the video, and finally, we kept it 6 words long so the viewer can read it in under 2 seconds. Right, that's our text hook complete. But the words you use within your text hook are only the beginning, because the real key to unlocking the Storefront Stone comes with part 2 of 2, using a graphic within your hook. Now, countless studies have found that 65% of the global population are visual learners. And come on, this is social media, so it's likely even higher. Therefore, we need to be using a graphic within our hook to visually show the viewer what they can expect to learn. So, for example, on this social media growth video, where we've already got our text hook sorted, we could use a view counter or another relevant graphic for our graphic hook. Or, if it's relevant to your video, just like it was to mine that blew up my Instagram page, you can use an effect such as the big hand, as it directly shows the viewer what they can expect to learn from watching this video. Or, you can combine the 2 a bit like this video does. But, if you're not an expert editor, or you just don't want to spend hours making motion graphics for your hooks, trust me, I get it. You got two options that will basically do all the work for you. You can either use jitter.video, which has hundreds of motion graphics templates that you can use with pretty much any software, or if you edit using Premiere Pro or After Effects, Mr. Horse will do the trick, as it has thousands of motion graphics presets, just like this timer and this bar graphic, which I promise will save you hours when it comes to editing. No, I'm not sponsored. All right, that's it. The two parts are now complete, which means the Storefront Stone is now finished and in the gauntlet. Now, although yes, that's your Storefront Stone done, your video's hooks are actually made up of an additional part, Stone 2, the name stone, which in other words is just your spoken hook that you'll say to the camera. And this stone's super important for crafting viral hooks because the Storefront Stone only ever works if it's also accompanied by the name stone. So, how do you master this one? Well, there's a quick rule of thumb on social media: negative emotions are king. So, to master the name stone to maximize our views, we'll need to be using a negative hook pretty much every single time. I mean, think about it. If I were to call you the worst content creator of all time, or tell the mass monster in the gym his form fucking sucked, A, I'd probably get smacked at least one of those times, but B, you and the mass monsters are always going to have a much bigger reaction to being called out as opposed to a compliment. Therefore, the same applies on social media. So, if you use a negative hook as opposed to a positive one, you almost always see more people stop and watch. Which is why, when I use a negative hook on this video, this is the golden ratio. And if you don't use it on your text, good luck going viral. It got over 470,000 views, and also had a massive part to play in blowing up my page. And of course, this is a Cam Strive video. So I've put together a list of the 10 best negative hooks that you can use to get views just like I did. They're linked in the description if you want to try them for free. Right, that's both our Storefront and name stone complete. Next up, stones 3 and 4, or as I like to call them, gained proof and gained context. Now, although these are two stones, we only really need to use one directly after our hook. And don't worry, whichever one you don't use can be used later on in the script. But using at least one of these stones, regardless of which one it is essential if you don't want to lose viewers early on. Now, although this might sound confusing, I promise you it isn't at all. All gained proof is a line within your script that uses either an influential person, study, or even a company or event to back up the point that you've just said or scripted in, which, as the name suggests, gives proof to what you've just said or are about to say. On the flip side, gained context is very similar, and it has the same use case. Of course, with the added bonus of being able to connect sections of your script together at a much faster pace. For example, this video from Jeff Nippard that got over 30 million views used gained proof right after the hook in the form of a study.
He always trains his calves using a full range of motion, and he only does the top half. Who do you think will grow bigger calves? Well, a new study tested this. One group used a full range of motion, and the other group did half reps, staying in the top half up on their toes.
But in some cases, we don't need that much proof right after the hook, in which case we can use gained context instead. A bit like this video did that got 2.1 million views.
You have the worst bench press on the planet if you do these three things. I know at least half of you do the third thing. I've seen it.
Now, both of those gain stones are used to reinforce why it's important for the viewer to keep on watching. Whereas without them, you're essentially just relying on your hook to carry your viewer from start to finish, and for the viewer to just rely on the points that you're saying without any proof that they work or how it will benefit them. Which, to be fair, that just doesn't happen. For example, in that video of mine that used a negative hook and got over 470,000 views, the gain proof that I used was, and if you don't believe me, it's the time-tested formula newspapers through to your favorite creators are all still using today. But I could have easily used gained context instead. For example, and the best part is, it's super easy to use. Now, as much as we only want to use one of those gain stones right after our hook, you can use them at different points within your script. For example, if halfway through your script you're delivering a key point of value, the chances are that having some kind of proof or context to back up what you've just said is going to enhance how the viewer takes that information on board. And of course, using either one of the gain stones to back up your point does exactly that. And with that being said, that's both the gain stones complete and in the gauntlet. Okay, now on to the fifth stone. And this is where your script will either be one that will bring in thousands of followers like mine did, or leave your follower count without any kind of spike whatsoever, which introduces us to the Your Value Stone. Now, unlike the gurus out there who tell you just to make valuable content but don't tell you how to make a valuable video, me and the Your Value Stone are here to do just that. So, to unlock the Your Value Stone, we actually have 3 separate criteria that your video's script must meet in order to be classed as valuable. First, how helpful is the script or the information within your script to a broad audience? And to make it even easier, let's keep going with my video that got over 470k views and break down why it was in fact helpful. Now, as obvious as it may seem, this video was super helpful, as it allowed the viewer to go from having no idea on how to size or position their text to having the most optimal text size for their video. along with a step-by-step guide on how to do just that. And of course, the question of how helpful was the script applies to practically every niche. For example, this video from Jeff Nippard helps the viewer go from an unoptimized squat to the most optimal. But if Jeff's video was on the best or perfect squat for bodybuilding, that would therefore exclude our yoga Karens and powerlifters from wanting to watch the video in the first place. Which of course means the video would no longer be helpful to a broad audience, as we've excluded a massive part of the viewership. Therefore, our video goes from helping the general gym goer to only really helping bodybuilders. And that brings us on to question or criteria 2. How helpful is the information in the script? There's a clear difference between helpful and useful. For example, a squat checklist that takes 2 hours to complete and requires 15 warm-up sets, yeah, that's still helpful, as it does actually help the viewer go from whatever their squat is right now to an optimal one, but it couldn't be further away from useful if it tried. As let's be honest, who in their right mind is going to use a 2-hour squat checklist or 15 warm-up sets? Well, the answer is practically no one, which is why that concept would be completely useless. But Jeff's actual squat checklist, which you can complete in under 60 seconds, is both helpful and useful, as it helps the viewer achieve the most optimal squat form and is something they're actually going to use, as it doesn't take hours to set up. Which actually leads nicely onto criteria number 3. How long does it take to take action? And the shorter the better. So in Jeff Nippard's case, if you've seen that video on the squat checklist and you're going to the gym on that same day, you can of course put it into practice in under 12 hours. But the goal of this question is just to make your information actionable in the shortest time possible, or under 12 hours if that's feasible. Which of course is the case for both the video that first blew my page up and gave me over 8,000 followers, and this video on the golden ratio, which as soon as the viewers stopped watching, within less than 1 minute, they could have taken the information and put it into action. And with that being said, you now know that as long as your video is helpful, useful, and actionable, you, my friend, have a valuable video. And therefore, the Your Value Stone is complete. And now that we've got stones 1 to 5, you've almost got my complete formula to crafting an explosive reel that's set up to go mega viral. We need to complete the gauntlet with the Urge Stone, which is a call to action. We often refer to this as a CTA. Typically, it's just a single line within your script with the sole purpose of getting your viewer to engage or take action on your video. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never personally followed someone because they've told me to follow for more. The only time I ever follow someone is because they gave me something that was helpful, useful, and actionable. And this retention graph kind of does all the talking for me. Notice how there's a dip at the very end of the video? Well, that's where a generic never gonna take action on CTA was placed. But if we were to shave it off the retention graphic and therefore the video's script, that Instagram reel would have ended on 65% retention instead of 50, which in the short form world can be the difference between 5,000 and 50,000 views. And that brings me on to finally completing the gauntlet and answering the question, what CTAs should you use? Well, thankfully, there's only really one call to action that you need to focus on, and that's the comment CTA. Not only does this help to boost your video's engagement, which signals to the algorithm to push your reel further, but it also allows you to extend your video's value. For example, the CTA in this video goes as follows. Now, if your maths is as bad as mine, comment maths and I'll send you this free site that does it for you. This allows me to give the viewer loads more golden ratio info without rambling on for another 20 seconds. And to prove this works, this generated me over 4,000 leads, all from comments on that very video. So, when you're using a comment CTA, just make sure to position it right after your main value, which can sometimes be right at the very end. But if your main value is right in the middle of your script, it's absolutely fine to use your comment CTA or your Urge Stone there as well. Hence that phrase, strike while the iron's hot, so you can get the most amount of people commenting as possible. Now, from just 3 videos, I gained over 22,000 followers. And simply by following the 6-step scripting stone framework, I promise you'll see crazy views on your Instagram reels just like I did. And of course, to make this even easier, along with those 10 negative hooks in the description, there's a copy and paste template for you to use to go viral on your next reel. And if you want to know how I took everything I learned from this experience to blow up my Instagram account to 50,000 followers, check out this video next. And after going through all 6 stones and completing the gauntlet, it'd only be right to show you an example of it put into action. And also to tell you that if you take the first letter of each stone and line them up, it actually spells never gonna give you up. Who the fuck wrote this, man? Seriously? Really? Got rickrolled. Fucking rickrolled.